Sometimes from the world of criminal justice, it bleeds into the world of law and politics. And we have just such a case now with a new ruling by a federal judge in a high-profile case in which the government, Trump's prosecutors, are seeking the death penalty. I'm talking about Luigi Mangione. But the Department of Justice, that disastrous, corrupt organization, has been caught by the federal judge of violating federal criminal rules against trying their case in the media, against trying to get future juries to convict him before they've even been sworn in as juries. He's entitled, whether the government likes it or not, to the presumption of innocence and to have a proper and zealous defense. Full disclosure, one of his defense lawyers is my podcast partner, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, but I need to report on this because it goes to our system of justice and our rule of law. And Judge Garnett, because it was brought to her attention by a letter brief and a letter motion, she has decided that she is going to call the Department of Justice on the carpet. She's going to put an end to extrajudicial statements being made. And this is right out of the Trump playbook. That's why it's important for the judges like Garnett to cut him off at the knees right now, to not allow Donald Trump to make statements, to make Carolyn Levitt repeat them, to let Stephen Miller repeat them all over social media. And if it's not Luigi Mangione, then it's going to be Letitia James, it's going to be Adam Schiff, it's going to be Lisa Cook, it's going to be any political enemy, any Democrat that the prosecutors go after for Donald Trump are entitled to the very same rights and not to have their case tried in the public media. Why do we have to hear so much about the Department of Justice and the prosecutors? I'd love to go back to the days when I barely knew who the Attorney General was for the United States. Merrick Garland, we saw him about once a month. And now we got to hear these people starting at the highest levels in the Department of Justice. We have to hear from them. It appears to be every hour violating the constitutional rights of defendants. And that's what I'm here defending on Legal AF. So the letter gets, I'm going to show you what the lawyers for Luigi Mangione were so upset by. This is what they wrote in their letter. I'll post it up on Legal AF and its Substack. Since the filing of Mr. Mangione's motion challenging the constitutionality of the death penalty, the government has continued to prejudice his right to a fair trial in a death penalty case in violation of the Fifth and Eighth Amendments. On September 18th, the President of the United States appeared on Fox News and stated that Mr. Mangione shot someone in the back. In fact, we have the clip. Let's run the clip.
Think about Mangione. He shot someone in the back. As clear as you're looking at me or I'm looking at you, he looked like a pure assassin. I was surprised, actually. You would have thought this guy would have been at a central casting in the movie, and maybe he was. But he think of what he did. He openly, it's not like, gee, there's a question. If there's a question, you can understand it, maybe. But there's not a question. He walked up to a man, didn't give him warning, didn't say turn around, didn't do like the Old West where you have a gunfight, you each have a gun. He shot him right in the middle of the back, instantly dead. And now he's like, I'm watching, the girls are going crazy for him. This is a sickness. This is, this really has to be studied and investigated. It's not possible.
And then this appearance, this clip was tweeted by a White House affiliated X account, the letter continues, called @RapidResponse47. And let's put up the screenshot of Rapid Response showing that particular statement of Donald Trump in which they repeat it, right? And then that post, according to the letter brief, was then retweeted by somebody who's the deputy director of the Department of Justice Office of Public Affairs with the added statement, POTUS is absolutely right. Now that was apparently deleted, but here is a copy of it that the lawyers for Mangione were able to obtain through the Wayback Machine and a screen grab. Here is Chad Gilmartin of the Department of Justice. You can see his little flag in the background there, reposting it, because this is the campaign to try the case and to pollute the jury's mind even before you get there. And now we're talking about death penalty. The following day, another account belonging to the assistant deputy attorney general for the deputy attorney general retweeted the same post. His name is Brian Nieves. Let's put him up on the screen. That's on page 4. That was deleted. Nothing says I know I did something wrong like deleted X postings. Now we move forward to Carolyn Levitt, because we have to, who just 2 days ago at her presser had to refer to Mr. Mangione, and she referred to him this way. Let's run the clip.
A left-wing assassin shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson right in the back in the heart of New York City.
Right. Trying the case from the lectern of the press secretary. And then we have a press release from the White House titled President Trump Isn't Backing Down from Crushing Left Violence, Radical Left Violence, and then naming Mangione particularly. And finally, they point out on page 5 of their filing, on the evening of September 23rd, just yesterday, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller, went on Fox News and said the following. Let's run that clip.
Of course, the healthcare CEO was brutally gunned down by another self-described so-called anti-fascist that was then celebrated by other self-described anti-fascists, who, of course, are really communist revolutionaries.
And then the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy then retweeted it to his 1.5 million X followers, and we'll put that up on the screen as well. Here's how the lawyers conclude. Now, again, this is about Mangione now, but you could insert any political enemy or rival of Donald Trump in one of their future cases. We got to start drawing the line in the sand now. The government has indelibly prejudiced Mr. Mangione by baselessly linking him to unrelated violent events and left-wing extremist groups, despite there being no connection or affiliation. A recent tragic high-profile murder has only increased this prejudicial rhetoric. The attempts to connect Mr. Mangione with these incidents and paint him as a left-wing violent extremist are false, prejudicial, and part of a greater political narrative that has no place in any criminal case. On April 25th, the lawyers remind the judge that this court ordered that the acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District make sure that everybody reads the local criminal rules 23.1 and to make sure they comply with it. Now we've got the order from Judge Garnett, which I'll also put up on Legal AF Substack. Here's what she has to say. For having received that letter I just read to you from, it appears, Judge Garnett rules from this letter, that multiple employees at the Department of Justice may have violated Local Criminal Rule 23.1. That stops extrajudicial statements being made by the prosecutors or people on their behalf that prejudice a person's ability to get a fair trial. And this court's order on April 25th, specifically identifying the strictures of this rule for counsel and directing the prosecution team to ensure that the highest levels of the Department of Justice, up to and including Attorney General Bondi, were aware of and understood they were bound by this rule. And see, the argument is they can't do through the Department of Justice can't do through Stephen Miller and Donald Trump and Carolyn Levitt that which they cannot do themselves. They can't use them as their proxy to do it. The judge continues, for the avoidance of doubt or confusion, the rule provides that in a criminal case, it is the duty of the lawyer or law firm and of a non-lawyer personnel employed by a lawyer's office or subject to a lawyer's supervision not to release or authorize the release of an opinion that a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication in connection with a pending criminal investigation. And she wants the following on page 2 of her order. The government is directed by October 3rd to respond to the September 23rd letter and to include with it a sworn declaration, that's an affidavit under oath, from a person of suitable authority that explains to the court how these violations occurred, despite the court's order, and what steps have been taken that no future violations occur, under penalty of future financial penalties and sanctions and contempt of court. And then this court will also consider the other statements that are referenced in the September 23 letter in connection with the death penalty motion. In other words, those statements are now new evidence against the Department of Justice screwing up their case, if you will, in the death penalty motion that's pending to get the death penalty out of the case. This is an example, one of dozens, of the Department of Justice being unhinged, out of control, and rogue, and of federal judges trying to rein them in. We're going to continue to follow it all right here on Legal AF. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button, come over to Legal AF Substack, where I'll post the letter from the lawyers along with Judge Garnett's ruling so that you can read it for yourself. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.